I really wanted to show people how to stay connected with their loved ones, even during a stressful time, how to take care of themselves, how to stay connected with their family members, just some sustainable tips because a lot of times caregivers don't take proper care of themselves. Before you kind of look outside in the community, like what are you bringing to the table? And so, is that a pension? Did you work somewhere? Do you receive some type of disability? Were you a veteran? Like, do you qualify for any of those? Do you have certain careers that may have extended benefits? People forget that you don't have to be involved in the day to day care in order to be a caregiver. My two uncles, her two sons, on a long distance basis, right? So it was managing that care, overseeing that care, helping them getting connected and qualify for whatever services, helping them figure out what they brought to the table themselves. And I did not have to be there physically helping them with what they needed on a day to day basis.
There's a difference between a dream chaser and a dream catcher. Hey, everybody, and welcome to the Dreamcatchers podcast. I'm your host, Jerome, and I've got a special friend with me today. I've got Frankie Brown, who's a member of Veracrep, who decided to join me on the show today. And when I tell you she's a special friend, you will understand why she's a special friend as we dive into the episode. Frankie, how are things? Where are you? Charlotte, Wilmington, uh, Puerto Vallarta? Where are you today?
Today, I am physically in Wilmington,
Okay,
kind of back and
okay.
forth between here and Charlotte, but today, right now, I'm in Wilmington.
Outstanding. And so we do things a little unconventional here. Most people wait all the way till the end to ask people how they can find out more about you. So let's go there first. If people love what they hear, and I know that they will, how can they find out more about you and what you do?
Yep, absolutely. So I am on social media. So I'm on Facebook, I am on Instagram at Autumn Life Solutions, or either my personal handle is Frankie Brown. They're also able to reach out to me via the website, autumnlifesolutions.com, where they can also find my phone number.
Ooh, she's giving out the numbers so you guys can call and text and do all the good things that
Absolutely.
she likes done. It's always interesting when people are out in the world doing really cool things and they don't want to be found. I
Mm.
learned pretty quickly that being the best kept secret is not a good idea. It's not a sustaining strategy for folks who want to stay in business. So, with that said, we got that out the way, so we won't miss that at the end. Frankie, what does Autumn Life Solutions do?
Good question. So, Autumn Life Solutions we are a group of healthcare advocates, particularly focusing on older adults and caregivers, particularly people that may have dementia, Parkinson's, those type of conditions going on. So we are really trying to figure out how to best support the caregiver and the loved ones that they're caring for. We also do serve people that are professional caregivers, but the bulk of who we serve are individuals that are caring for their loved ones.
Okay, so you take care of the caregiver.
Absolutely.
Ooh. Now, I've got this book over here. I think it's called The Elephant in the Room. Is that is that
That
the
is my
title of the
book.
book?
It is my book. Yep. The Elephant in the Room. It talks about caregiver stress because if you think about it, the bulk of the services and support that we are accustomed to hearing about and learning about are targeted for the individual that needs the care. But we do things a little different at Autumn Life Solutions, and we extend care and focus to the actual caregiver so that they can learn how to really show up as their best self so that they can be there for the person that they are taking care of. So, yep, I wrote the book. It is available in paperback copy or digital download, and it can be found on Amazon.
Now, what made you want to write the book? Because books are hard.
Yep. I wrote the book during the pandemic where I saw a lot of families struggling to remain connected with their loved ones, primarily in the sense of people that were living in the community. So maybe at assisted livings, maybe at family care homes or at nursing homes. There was a lot of disconnect. And so I really wanted to show people how to stay connected with their loved ones, even during a stressful time, which was really a universal trauma and stress that we all kind of experience. So just wanted to provide caregivers with some helpful tips about how to take care of themselves, how to stay connected with their family members, just some sustainable tips because a lot of times caregivers don't take proper care of themselves. So it was just wanting to reach out and support them during that difficult time.
Now, it's interesting. You said that very flippant. Caregivers don't take care of themselves. To me, that sounds like an atrocity because if the caregiver isn't taken care of, then who's going to be there to give care?
Absolutely. Yep. And unfortunately, um, caregivers often die before the people that they are taking care of. And a lot of times people don't want to think about that, but it is true because caregivers kind of put themselves as the last to be taken care of, or if they take care of themselves at all. And so it just becomes a vicious cycle. If they're feeling overwhelmed and underappreciated, they don't take care of themselves. And so the days and the minutes and the weeks kind of add up. And so they're not doing what they need to do to ensure that their well-being is put first.
Do you have any experience with that, or do you know any stories of where the people? Because I imagine that they're not taking care of themselves on purpose. I think they just kind of put themselves last, or they decide that other people need support or help more than they do. So, like, how would, I guess, instead of the story about people not taking care of themselves, how would somebody know if they're not taking care of themselves?
Yep, that's a good question. Most of the times, caregivers, their own like physical and emotional health, it just kind of caregiving takes a toll on them, right? And so whether that means that they are missing work or missing medical appointments, they're not able to continue to plug into maybe social circles that they enjoy being a part of. They're not going to doctor's appointments, not taking medication. Physically, they're not themselves. They may start to develop like physical aches and pains. And again, most people don't want to think about this aspect of caregiving as well, but managing the mounting day-to-day task that can be involved with caring for someone can be a burden. So not the individual themselves, because that's your family member, that's your friend, that's your spouse, but just trying to figure out how to navigate all of those tasks can be very overwhelming. And so if the caregivers do have any downtime, they're usually not trying to, figure out how to take care of themselves. They're trying to, watch a little TV, they're trying to get a nap, but taking care of their own like physical needs, emotional needs, often takes the back seat.
Ooh. So, do they have to have like a breakdown to realize they're in trouble, or are there other things that we should be looking for as warning signs or symptoms that things are going to a place that they shouldn't go?
Yep, that's a good question. So I is my belief that caregiving is kind of a universal. We don't necessarily always talk about it, but likely all of us know a caregiver. We will be a caregiver at some point, or we will need some type of care ourselves. And so if you think about someone that is caring for someone else, they will likely not reach out for help. Unfortunately, they likely may not offer any help that you are extending. And so most of the time, I encourage family members or friends to try to get connected with whoever the caregiver's like immediate supports are, right? Because they may have some inside information about what the caregiver may need, something that they may enjoy doing. Maybe you can do something nice for them to kind of help them manage the responsibilities of being a caregiver. But it can be a challenge sometimes to connect with caregivers. Because there's a lot of shame associated with needing help or feeling like you don't have all of the answers for your particular loved one, although none of us do. For some reason, that's just kind of the, societal expectations that is impossible to live up to.
Ooh. So, is that not the societal expectations, not the standard? Well, what is if that's not?
No, yeah, and I think there are so many things, wrong that we have to consider when we're thinking about caregiving, right? Because there are personal beliefs about aging and needing care. There are cultural beliefs. And so even myself, if I think about being an African American female, being born in that community. Like, if I think back to when I was a young child, when I was an adolescent, I saw members in my community rally around and take care of the older adult, right? And so that was the model that I saw. I saw my great aunts and my great uncles living with their children and grandchildren and being kind of taken care of, right? So that kind of community support. And so it was just kind of an expectation, right? And so I think in some communities, particularly females, because a lot of times we are expected to take on that role, you're kind of groomed into being a caregiver, right? And so I saw that as a young child, and then as an adolescent, and then as a young adult, right? So when I went away to college, I remember um, managing those caregiver responsibilities from a long distance perspective for my grandmother. So I was that person that she would turn to, that she would rely on, and so it's kind of those expectations that I myself also grew up with. And so you just kind of um, get on that path, which is what I did. And so that kind of led me to where I am now. So a lot of experiences seeing caregivers and being a caregiver myself from a very young age.
Hmm. So, are you just doing what you saw done? Is that why you're on the path, or was there something that happened that made you decide that you should take that journey?
Now, I am doing it because I enjoy working with caregivers, families, aging families, because of my experiences in my immediate family, as well as with my grandmother. And so I developed a great interest in it. Um, I enjoy working with families and really showing them that they are able to remain an integral part of their family, as well as set up support for their loved ones so that managing those tasks doesn't become overwhelming and their own well being suffers. So I'm definitely doing it because I enjoy it. I grew up, seeing it, but I stayed here and intentionally kind of, chose to get further education so that I could really understand caregiving and healthcare from a provider's perspective because I brought to the table my own personal stories and experiences. But there's so much more that I didn't see in my own personal family that I wanted to learn about. So that's what I did professionally.
So that's you gaining your expertise. But let us in behind the curtain. You said your grandmother and your personal experience there. Was there a need for her to have some long-term care at home?
Actually, there wasn't. She was really just a forward thinker. Um, if I think back to probably as a young adult, I remember her talking to me during one of my trips from Greensboro to Wilmington and letting me know that she wanted me to help her plan her funeral, right? And so for me, that was mind blowing because growing up as a young child and as an adolescent, I saw my family members rally around and take care of my great aunts and uncles. Um, but there was no conversation, at least openly and publicly, about preparing for the next steps, whether that's long-term care or even, helping someone make final arrangements. So when that time came, that too would not become a burden, right? That planning and paying for final services wouldn't become an additional burden to the family. Um, so that was just, I remember that kind of being, it takes me back to that time when we were talking in her living room. Now I can think about it. And in my mind, I was like, this is pretty cool. But I was like, okay, because my family, we didn't, that was new to me. We didn't talk about it openly. And so I was like, this is pretty impressive. But that's exactly what we did. I helped her, followed her lead. And so she laid the foundation for the long-term care planning, which is, part of what I stand on today.
Okay, you said burden, and I was trying to avoid that because I think a lot of people would be offended if they were labeled or called a burden.
Mhm.
Uh, but I don't know how I should characterize it. When somebody is unable to take care of themselves, whether that's financially or through their day to day living, they are a burden for somebody else unless that person's getting paid to do it. And most times when people have folks who are family taking care of them, they're not getting compensated for that. So I guess the first question I have on this kind of line of burden is, what is the biggest thing that people need to be worried about or planning for so that they don't become a burden to their family?
I think the biggest thing is people need to have a or get an understanding of what resources they have available, right? So before you kind of look outside in the community, like what are you bringing to the table? And so is that a pension? Did you work somewhere? Do you receive some type of disability? Were you a veteran? Like, do you qualify for any of those? Do you have certain careers that may have extended benefits? And so then you can go to kind of the next tier, like what is available in the community. I think also we need to really take a serious look at, I've said this previously, like what are our thoughts about aging and needing a caregiver? Because sometimes people don't feel like they have the skill set to be a caregiver. They feel like that's not what they signed up for. And also, another important piece is people forget that you don't have to be involved in the day-to-day care in order to be a caregiver. So if you think back to when I mentioned previously about being a young adult, moving away to go to college, I was still able to be a caregiver for my grandmother and eventually my two uncles, her two sons, on a long distance basis, right? So it was managing that care, overseeing that care, helping them getting connected and qualified for whatever services, helping them figure out what they brought to the table themselves. And I did not have to be there physically helping them with what they needed on a day-to-day basis. I think that is another misconception and an expectation in society that a caregiver is only the person physically there in the home with the person needing care. And there's another perspective that we should consider, which is long distance caregiving, even.
So, even though I'm not there with grandma or mom or dad, I can still be in support of their care.
Absolutely. And that's ideal because maybe one child or one grandchild or one relative does live nearby, right? But they can also count on the person that is long distance. The more people that are involved and supporting the people that need care is ideal. So it's not just one person having to make those decisions in isolation.
Whoa. That was mind blowing for me. Now,
Mhm.
I think you said you didn't say risk. You said basically take inventory of the resources that are available to them. Like that's the first thing that people need to do. Why
Absolutely.
is that so important?
Because the goal is to help them, the caregiver, the person needing care, get support as efficiently and effectively as possible. And when it comes to the point of end of life, to be able to transfer assets to manage any final business as seamlessly as possible.
Hey guys, as you might know, a very small percentage of the people who actually listen to this podcast are subscribers. So do us a favor, subscribe. In fact, we did some analytics and we found out that only 25% of the people who listen are subscribers. And our goal is to get that to about 75% over the next 3 months. So do us a favor, hit the subscribe button so you get notified when our new episodes come. We plan to bring immense value to you guys going forward as we continue to improve the content that we create at Dreamcatchers. Your dreams should be real. Let's get back to the show.
I am 100% certain that is what the person would want that needed the care. Nobody wants to leave their family members in a financial bind, essentially trying to figure out where paperwork is, if they still own the property, any mortgages, any of that stuff. So that's what people want. But is at Autumn Life Solutions, we essentially help people kind of take inventory of that and get it everything organized so that as their needs change and when the time comes, it's done as seamlessly as possible.
Mhm. And so, have you seen things go sideways because people didn't know what was available or the transition was not seamless, but I guess a bunch of gaps and bumpy?
Absolutely. This was a few years back, if I think about it. During COVID, I worked with a family. So her parents passed away without a will, without a trust. She was the only surviving heir. Um, Actually, during that time when everything was kind of shut down, um, that helped buy her some time because she was grieving. Her father was the last one to pass away. She was grieving and trying to figure out next steps. So there was a delay, across our nation with, the county offices and those type of things, which helped her. But it took her about 2 years to finalize her father's estate. And it took her a lot of time and a lot of money. Um, Eventually, she was able to get connected with us, and we did a lot of that heavy lifting for her. But before she made it to us and made contact and reached out to ask for help, um, she had experienced a lot of stress because she just did not know what to do, and or really who to trust, because that is a concern also, particularly during the time where it was COVID and there was a lot of different things going on. But yeah, so we've seen it go bad very quickly.
Well, that one seems simple because there was only one surviving heir. I can only begin to imagine what would have happened if there were three siblings or children outside of that home that
Right.
felt entitled, or an estranged spouse or partner. And like, I think
Sure.
things could get messy pretty quickly. But the example you gave is really simple. Am I, or does everything just kind of reduce to a simple situation like that?
Oh no, not at all. I think probably in the past, I would say within the past year, we've assisted another family members. So there were a lot of children involved, some minor, some that were at least 18. And so they reached out to us for help. And so the conversations have to differ when they're minor children and their mothers involved, as opposed to children that are at least 18 years old. That particular family, the deceased person did not have a will or a trust. And so there was a lot that we had to help them navigate through because that person was unmarried and there were children, that we had to consider. So, no, it is not always easy. And people will have a lot of different ideas and a lot of different suggestions, but they're not able to manage the business, right, when it comes down to it. And so it comes up a lot. There are a lot of fractured relationships that dissolve or change significantly after someone passes away, or someone gets ill for an extended period of time. And so that's where the difficulty comes when those relationships are damaged, um, just because of kind of the information gap, right? The lack of information. Not that the person wanted it to be like that, but they just did not know where to start or what to do, so they did nothing.
They don't know where to start or what to do, so they do nothing. So people are overwhelmed in a situation and they just freeze.
Absolutely.
That's terrifying.
It is. Or some people are afraid to talk about it, right? Think about it. We In some communities, in some cultures, there's a fear that if you talk about sickness or death, then that'll happen. But on the flip side of that, we plan for all kinds of things. Graduation is in a few weeks, so people are planning for graduation parties and baby showers and, birthday parties, all kinds of things. But when it comes to long-term care and kind of thinking about your healthcare needs, people shy away from those conversations more than not.
Do you think that's a cultural thing, or do you see that being pretty universal?
I think is universal. I do see it more in some cultures, but I think it's universal. There's just a fear of talking about it, and nobody wants to age and grow older. But death is just a part of life, and so we definitely want to help people have those crucial conversations and kind of look at what they have and some things that they can expect as their needs change.
And so my guess is they don't talk about it because they're scared.
Right.
What are they scared of? Or said probably better, what aren't they scared of that could happen if they don't talk about it, to force them to get over the discomfort of talking about it?
part of the fear is that if they talk about it, they'll be premature death, right? Like they'll, for whatever reason, they'll die before their time. Another part of it is, um, let's say if there are multiple children or multiple people that they want to leave part of their estate to, right? And so relationships are different with different children, with different members of the family. And so sometimes they don't want to have those conversations with those children or family members. And so they shy away from it. And so it's just fear. And it's just misplaced fear. And so just as we talk about finances, although I think people don't talk about finances enough either. Whatever the topic is, like we just want to help people become more comfortable with kind of considering what they may need as they age and talking about how we can help them with that.
Do you have an example of a disaster that happened that might poke people along to actually have the conversation?
Gosh, the disaster that I was thinking about was the with the family in the past year where the gentleman had 6 kids because there just became so much anger and discord within the family that there were negative conversations and arguments with different vendors, right? So with the at the funeral home that the family was trying to use, and somebody did not want to use that particular funeral home, there was disagreements and conversations about cremation versus a traditional service. And this particular person also did not have any they didn't leave any money to help fund their final arrangements. So there was no burial plan, there was no life insurance, there were no investments, no long-term care, none of that stuff. And so everybody had ideas until it came time to pay for services, right? And so there were all kinds of demands about they want sprinter vans to pick family members up. So it just became very chaotic for the family very quickly. And so think about it when someone passes away, for the most part, you have about maybe a week, right? To kind of accept what happened, figure out the next steps, think about how to locate people like the immediate family, pull together obituary information and pictures and figure out the funeral home, so there are a lot of things, right? And so it just becomes very debilitating for family members that don't have anything. So we want to help people learn how to organize all that information, um, mitigate the risk, and have things go as seamlessly as possible when that time comes.
Uh, A week to cope with the death, plan the service, deal with all of the things that come up when there's a power vacuum, right? So that
Right.
person occupied a space and now they're gone. And so now people are trying to come in and fill the space, grab whatever resources are available. And and I won't let you say this, I'll say this. So it's my belief that if you don't prepare for the end, then you're being selfish, right? Because it's the one thing that's certain. The one thing that's certain is that you are going to depart from this place. Now, whether it's one of those long drawn out things where you just kind of degrade and decay in front of everybody, or if it's sudden, like a car accident or some other catastrophe, doesn't really matter. What matters is the fact that you know that you're going to leave this place at some point. And you can leave it for other people to deal with, or you can deal with it and not taint whatever legacy or memory that they have of you. Because I can only imagine that when somebody leaves in that manner where everything's undone, that the person who's left to clean up the mess begins to resent the person that left the mess for them to clean up.
Right.
Is that fair, or am I off base there?
No, you're definitely right on target. That does happen. And then, the person that is left, what do they do with those feelings, right? Because it's not like they can have a conversation with the person that departed and kind of talk about their frustrations. But yeah, it definitely can take a toll on the person or people that are left to figure out that mess. So yeah, you're definitely right on target with that. And unfortunately, that is what happens a lot of times.
Okay. So I'm out there and I got some stuff going on, Frankie. I'm trying to, but I'm overwhelmed. I don't know what I'm supposed to do next. I don't really know all of the things that are supposed to be done because nobody's died in a long time, or I've not been responsible for whatever is supposed to be done on behalf of the deceased. And I say, hey, Frankie, I need help. Uh, what's the first thing that we would do? Like, kind of take me down the process of maybe some of the folks that you've helped so that people can get a feel for what this is. Cause I think it's a pretty, you said it was different. I think different's always better than better. Right. So you're doing things in a different way.
Right.
And I think people should get an understanding of what that actually means.
Yep, sure. So essentially, if someone wants assistance or even to figure out, what it is we do, more details, if we would be a good fit together, they can just contact me, right? And so we would just set up a strategy call, whether that's by video or by phone, just to try to quickly check in to figure out what their current situation is, right? Who are the like key people that are on their care team, kind of, right? So, are they caring for parents or other family members or friends? Like, who are other supports? And what is the situation that they're concerned about? Just to try to quickly pinpoint what it is. And so then we'll kind of help them figure out, like, moving forward, what the next steps are. Like, is the person still employed? Are they retiring? Do they receive some type of disability? What kind of support do they have? Just so that we can set up a plan, and also keep in mind, like, plans can change, right? As they should, because the healthcare needs may change. And so something that works today, whether that be like companion care coming in, or some type of respite for the caregiver, that may change in a few months. And so, but it's important to just get an initial like plan in place, and then we tweak it as we need to.
So it sounds like it's three steps. Correct me if I'm missing it. So the first thing you do is you do a data analysis. You gather the facts, right? There's some information gathering that's done. Then you analyze it and create a plan. And then after we have the plan, we can go off and implement it. So like an gather, plan, implement. Is that right?
Yep, you got it.
Okay. That doesn't sound as overwhelming as I gotta go to all these different places and get these passwords, and I don't know how to do all that, and I don't even know how I'm gonna pay for this stuff. Um, so are there some important like documents that I need to have in order for you to do the information gathering? You talked about a pension at one point, but like, is it comprehensive financial documents or is it insurance? Like, what would you be looking for when I come to you and you start doing the information gathering?
Yep. So we would be asking that you go gather all of the important documents. Or if you don't have those documents, consider getting them in place, right? So is that a will? Is that a power of attorney? Is that trust? Confirming what type of medical insurance you have, if you have long-term care, all of those kind of things. Getting the phone numbers and contact information, account numbers. So it'll take, we'll be working together for quite a bit of time initially, just to kind of pull all that stuff together. So we'll have several sessions. We meet, kind of organize that information. But once you pull it together that one time, it's there, right? And so you have the plan that we will create so that you can use it moving forward and as needed. And so that's very helpful than trying to remember, where you put this and where you put that. And, you are dealing with trying to care for yourself. You're dealing with trying to take care of your loved one. And so having all of that information in an organized fashion will be very helpful. And so we can do that heavy lifting for you.
So do I get like a notebook? Like what happens at the end? Like what is my plan? Is it just I don't know, three ring binder? Like what does it look like?
So it can be a 3-ring binder if that is helpful. You can have tabs, you can have organized. We want it to be a plan that is helpful to people and that they understand. Some people will have something like a digital copy of something, right? So it just depends what is easiest for you to understand and what is practical for you to use.
Mm. It sounds like peace of mind would probably be the biggest benefit that I would get because I know where the stuff is and I know what's available. Is that right? Or is there some other benefit that you hear your clients say on the backside of going through that part of the process?
Yep. So peace of mind is definitely something, improved quality of life because they're not stressing about where this is. Someone told them they may or may not have had this policy or that type of coverage, is also important. Just improved overall, just health. So it's important for people to put themselves first and take care of themselves. And so peace of mind and improved quality of life are kind of the big things, and freeing up the caregiver's time, right? Because we're able to help put support in place for them that can allow them to be able to step away from their their duties as a caregiver, but plug someone else or some other support service in so that the person still gets what they need, but the caregiver also is taken care of.
We're back. It's full circle. The caregiver is taken care of. And so by having stuff organized, that gives me peace of mind, that improves my quality of life because it reduces my stress.
Yep.
And by turning down the stress, I'm in a better condition all the way around, right?
You got it.
Whew. That's good, man. That's good. I think so many people are scared. And so instead of actually taking action, they let the fear control them. And then by putting it off, by delaying it, it just makes the situation worse. And what you're
Absolutely.
offering to folks, from my perspective, is a lifeline. You're saying, hey, you don't have to drown out there in a sea of fear. You can get this stuff taken care of. It might be uncomfortable to have the conversation. It might be uncommon to have the conversation. But on the other side of this process, you're going to be in a situation where you know people's wishes, you know what's available in order to accommodate those wishes, and you are helping that person protect their legacy because they aren't leaving you with remorse, regret, uh, and frustration because you've got to make a bunch of decisions while you're still trying to deal with the loss of the person being in your life. That's exciting.
That is exciting. And also the caregiver doesn't have to feel trapped in a sense until the person passes away, right? Because sometimes caregivers, if they're physically in the home helping manage day-to-day tasks, they feel like there's no support, there's no help, there's nowhere to turn. And so they feel trapped in essence until the person passes away. However, there then becomes other business that has to be handled, right? And so all along the way, there will be things to manage. So we just want to try to help move people to be more proactive instead of reactive.
Mm. So when what was that? Like preventative care. Like this is preventative care. Like
Mhm,
this is getting your physical so that you don't find out 3 years later that you have cancer because you
mhm.
went to the doctor on a whim. Why do we skip over preventative care? Like, what is up with that? Because it seems like that small investment can make a huge difference on the overall enjoyment of the outcome.
Right, exactly. Yep, you made a good point. Like we do often skip, whether that's if we're thinking about long-term care, if we're thinking about medical care, right? A lot of people don't get like those annual kind of checkups. They kind of figure things out when there's a crisis, right? When they're in the ER, when they have a stroke or heart attack, or, you know, even, if you're thinking about dementia care, people leave the home, safety and security become an issue. And so then they may consider reaching out to someone like me, but it's like we can be more proactive, and it's more of that peace of mind that we were talking about if you are proactive.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, once you know better, you got to do better. And you heard it from the lips of Frankie Brown. We need to be having these conversations. There's only one guarantee. I know people say death and taxes. There's only one guarantee, and that's death at some point for all the folks that walk here. Now, the question is, do you want to ruin your legacy by not creating an experience that's going to be enjoyable for the people who survive you? Because if you leave them a mess, if you create chaos and build a bunch of stress for them, I guarantee you those warm, fuzzy feelings that they had about you while you were here are going to evaporate. And at least for a short period of time, you're going to be the pain that they want to go away.
Absolutely.
Frankie, as we wrap this thing up, I love to ask the guests a question. And that question is, what's the one thing you want the listeners to take away from this episode?
The one thing I want the listeners to take away from the episode is that they are worth any type of pre planning that they consider and that they do, and that support for caregivers is available, right? Again, so our focus at Autumn Life Solutions is to extend that care and support to the actual caregiver. The people that are needing the care provided to them have tons of support, tons of people around them. And so my focus is the caregiver.
More and more people are becoming caregivers. Uh, this generation is tweening. The parents are aging and they're living longer. A lot of times they have kids in the house that they're taking care of as well. And it just becomes a very uh, interesting sandwich. And
Yes.
so, if you know that you're going to be a caregiver in the short term, it's probably worth all of the effort it will take to reach out to Frankie. She gave you all the different socials, she gave you the website, and she might even give you guys a phone number. I encourage you to reach out, one, so that you can get the support you need, two, so that you can identify any gaps because you don't know what you don't know. And
Right.
there might be support available for you that you don't even know is available. And Frankie does because she's the expert. She's got the certifications, she's got the lived experience. And I would deeply encourage you to take advantage of this opportunity to get different care because it's better than better. Frankie, you are a dream catcher. You're out here making a difference in the quality of lives for caregivers. Thank you so much for coming on the episode.
Thank you for having me, Jerome. I appreciate it.
To my listeners, your dreams should be real. We'll catch you on the next episode.